My father screamed that I was useless and threw me out into an approaching blizzard, completely unaware that I secretly paid the mortgage and maintained the complex generator system. He smirked as I left, but 8 days later, the lights went out and the real freeze began. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fever was already burning behind my eyes when I walked through the front door, the heavy oak slab slamming shut against the biting wind outside. It was a Thursday, usually the day I finalized the weekly logistics reports for 3 million square feet of commercial real estate. But today, my body had finally staged a coup. My throat felt like it was lined with broken glass, and every joint in my body ached with a dull, throbbing rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl on the entryway table, the clatter echoing in the silence of the house. I had been working a 14-hour shift, handling a catastrophic HVAC failure at one of the downtown high-rises I managed, all while nursing this creeping flu. All I needed, was to crawl into my bed, pull the duvet over my head, and sleep for 12 hours. "Is that you?" A voice boomed from the living room. It wasn't a greeting, it was an accusation. I closed my eyes for a second, summoning whatever reserves of patience I had left. "Yes, Dad, it's me." I walked into the living room, still wearing my heavy coat, shivering despite the warmth of the house. My father, Gabriel, was sitting in his recliner, the television blaring some political commentary show. My mother, Linda, was knitting in the corner, her eyes fixed studiously on her yarn, avoiding my gaze. My brother, Grayson, was sprawled on the sofa, scrolling through his phone with a bored expression, while my younger sister, Sadie, sat at the dining table with her headphones on, likely trying to block out the tension that permanently permeated the air in this house. "You're late," Gabriel said, not looking away from the TV. "Dinner was an hour ago. Your mother had to put the dishes away." "I was working, Dad," I rasped, my voice cracking. "There was an emergency at the Plaza Tower. The heating units failed on the upper floors. I had to coordinate the repair crews." Gabriel finally turned to look at me, his eyes narrowing. He didn't see the exhaustion in my posture or the feverish flush on my cheeks. He only saw what he wanted to see, disobedience. "Working," he scoffed, the word dripping with disdain. "You're always working. Yet, look at this place. The gutter on the back porch is still leaking. I told you about that 3 days ago." I blinked, the room spinning slightly. "The gutter? Dad, I manage industrial facilities. I haven't had 5 minutes to look at a gutter. Can't Grayson do it? He's been home all day." Grayson didn't even look up from his phone. He just let out a sharp, derisive snort. Gabriel slammed his hand down on the armrest of his chair, the sound making Linda jump. "Don't you dare deflect to your brother. Grayson is focusing on his career. He has interviews. He has potential. You're just wandering around buildings. And you think that excuses you from your duties here." "My duties?" I asked, a dangerous spark of anger cutting through the fog of my illness. "I pay the electric bill, Dad. I pay the internet bill that Grayson is using right now. I pay the gap on the mortgage that your pension doesn't cover. I am doing my duty." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Gabriel stood up slowly. He was a large man, imposing, and he used his size to intimidate. He walked toward me until he was looming over me, his face turning a shade of purple I knew all too well. "You think money buys you respect." He spat, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. "You think throwing a few dollars at the bills gives you the right to talk back to me in my own house. I am the head of this household, Claire. Me, not you." "I'm not saying you aren't," I said, swaying slightly on my feet. "I'm just saying I'm sick, I'm tired, and I contribute more than just a few dollars. I keep this house running." "You do nothing," Gabriel screamed, the sudden volume making my ears ring. "You come and go as you please, you treat this place like a hotel, and you disrespect me at every turn. You are a burden, Claire. A selfish, ungrateful burden." The injustice of it hit me harder than the fever. For 5 years, since his retirement and the subsequent financial tightness, I had been the silent engine of this family. I had upgraded the insulation, installed the smart thermostat system to save the money, and negotiated the contracts for the utilities. I did it all silently, without asking for thanks because they were family. If I'm such a burden, I whispered, my voice trembling, then maybe I shouldn't be here. Gabriel pointed a shaking finger at the door. You're right, you shouldn't. If you think you're so high and mighty, if you think you run this show, then get out. Go, see how far you get without the roof I provide. I looked at Linda. Mom. She bit her lip, her eyes watering, but she didn't look up. She kept knitting, faster now, the needles clicking like the ticking of a bomb. She wouldn't save me, she never did. Out, Gabriel roared. Tonight, right now, I don't want to see your face until you learn some respect. I looked at Grayson. He was smirking. A small, satisfied smile played on his lips as he watched the drama unfold, entertained by my humiliation. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap, but a quiet, final severance. I nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, Gabriel blinked, expecting begging, expecting tears. Okay, I repeated. I'm leaving. I turned around, my head pounding, and walked back to the entryway. I didn't go upstairs to pack a bag. I didn't grab my toiletries. I just picked my keys back up from the ceramic bowl. Don't expect to come crawling back tomorrow. Gabriel yelled after me. You stay out until you're ready to apologize on your knees. I opened the heavy oak door. The wind howled, spraying snow into the hallway. The forecast called for the blizzard of the decade to hit within 48 hours, a deep freeze that would shatter records. I stepped out into the cold, the icy air shocking my feverish skin. As I pulled the door shut behind me, cutting off the warmth and the light, I realized that the betrayal I felt was worse than the diagnosis itself. It was a cold that no coat could ever keep out. The walk to my car was a blur of white noise and shivering limbs. My hands shook so violently that it took me 3 tries to unlock the door of my SUV. Once inside, I didn't start the engine immediately. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house I had just been exiled from. The living room window glowed with a warm, yellow light. I could see the silhouette of my father sitting back down in his recliner. He looked righteous. He looked satisfied. He thought he had just taught a wayward child a lesson. He thought he had asserted his dominance, proving that he was the king of his castle and I was merely a subject he could banish at will. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting a text from my mother, maybe a secret message telling me to wait around the corner until he cooled off. It was a notification from the smart home app installed on my phone. System alert. Exterior door left ajar. I laughed, a dry, harsh sound that hurt my throat. I hadn't pulled the door tight enough. A moment later, another notification popped up. Exterior door closed. Grayson or my mother must have gotten up to latch it. I looked at the app interface. It was a complex dashboard I had designed and customized myself. It monitored everything: the furnace efficiency, the humidity levels in the basement, the security cameras, and most importantly, the backup generator system. That generator was my masterpiece. The house was old, located in a semi-rural area where the power grid was notoriously unstable. 2 years ago, after a 3-day blackout that nearly froze the pipes, I had spent $5,000 of my own savings to install a high-end, industrial-grade generator. It wasn't just a plug-and-play machine. It was integrated into a smart grid I'd built. It required a specific propane mixture and, crucially, a digital handshake protocol to engage. Because the system was so powerful, I had set it up to require a manual authorization from the admin account, me, to kick in, a safety feature to prevent it from surging and frying the old wiring of the house unless the load was balanced. My thumb hovered over the admin settings button. I could revoke their access right now. I could turn off the lights, cut the internet, and lock the smart locks. I could make their lives miserable instantly, but I didn't. That would be petty. That would be childish. And frankly, I was too sick to care about revenge in that moment. I just wanted to be warm. I started the car and backed out of the driveway. As the house receded in my rearview mirror, disappearing into the swirling snow, a wave of nausea hit me. It wasn't just the flu, It was the realization of how disposable I was to them. I drove to the only place I could think of, a residence in about 15 miles away, near the business district where my office was. I knew the manager there. I had referred a lot of corporate clients to him. When I checked in, the lobby was empty. The night clerk looked at my pale face and trembling hands with concern. "Rough night, Claire?" he asked. "You have no idea," I managed to whisper. "I need a room for, I don't know, a week, maybe 2. Once in the room, I stripped off my damp clothes and collapsed onto the bed. I didn't cry. I was too dehydrated, too empty for tears. I stared at the ceiling, shivering under the hotel blankets. My phone buzzed again, a text from Sadie. "Sadie, Dad is on a rampage. He says you're ungrateful and that you'll be back by morning begging for food. Mom is crying, but she's making him tea. Grayson is laughing about it. Where did you go?" I typed back slowly, "I'm safe. Don't worry about me. Worry about the storm." "Sadie, the storm. The news says it's going to be bad, but we have the generator, right? Dad said not to worry because we have the big machine you bought." I stared at the words, "the big machine you bought." Gabriel didn't even know the brand name. He didn't know how to check the oil levels. He didn't know that the automated weekly test cycle was scheduled for tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m., and that the system was currently flagging a filter warning that required a manual reset code to clear before it would run at full capacity. If that code wasn't entered, the system would default to safe mode and refuse to generate power to protect the engine. I had the code. It was in my head. It was in the app. I didn't reply to Sadie. I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb and rolled over. They had the house. They had the warmth for now. But as the wind howled outside my hotel window, rattling the glass, I realized they had forgotten one crucial thing. A house is just a shell if you don't know how to keep its heart beating. And I had taken the heartbeat with me. To understand why this night was the breaking point, you have to understand the dynamic of the house I grew up in. It wasn't always this toxic, or maybe it was, and I was just too young to see the poison in the water. Gabriel, my father, was a man defined by his career. He had been a mid-level manager at a manufacturing plant for 30 years. He was the kind of man who believed that bringing home a paycheck absolved him of all other domestic responsibilities. He didn't cook, he didn't clean, and he certainly didn't nurture. When he retired 5 years ago, he didn't pick up a hobby. He picked up a gavel. He decided his new job was managing the family, but he was a terrible manager. He made bad investments, sinking a chunk of his pension into a friend's guaranteed real estate scheme that went belly up. That was when I stepped in. I had just been promoted to facilities manager at my firm. I was making good money, better money than he ever did, though I never told him the exact figure. I quietly took over the internet bill, then the car insurance. Then, when I saw the past due notice on the kitchen counter he thought he'd hidden, I started paying the mortgage gap. I didn't do it for power. I did it because I loved them. I wanted them to be secure, but Gabriel couldn't handle the shift in power dynamics. The more I provided, the more resentful he became. He couldn't attack my competence. It was paying for his cable TV, so he attacked my character. I was cold. I was bossy. I was unfeminine because I wore work boots and knew how to fix a sump pump. And then there was Grayson. Grayson, my 24-year-old brother, was the sun around which Gabriel orbited. Grayson was charming, handsome, and utterly useless. He had dropped out of college 2 years ago to find himself, which apparently involved sleeping until noon and streaming video games until 4:00 a.m. To Gabriel, Grayson was a visionary. If Grayson borrowed $20, it was an investment. If I bought a $500 groceries haul, it was the least I could do. The morning after I was kicked out, I woke up in the hotel room feeling slightly better. The fever had broken, leaving me weak but clear-headed. I sat up and drank 3 bottles of water from the minibar. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The first thing I did was cancel the recurring transfer for the mortgage. Next, I logged into the utility provider's portal. The account was in my name. I had switched it 3 years ago to get a corporate discount my company offered. I didn't turn off the power. That would be illegal, and I wasn't a monster. But I did remove my credit card from the autopay and switched the billing address back to the house, effective immediately. Then I opened the smart home dashboard. System status, warning, generator routine maintenance required. Code 404B, air intake sensor. I stared at the red warning light blinking on my screen. This was a standard sensor glitch that happened when the temperature dropped rapidly. It was an easy fix. You just had to go to the physical control panel on the side of the unit, punch in the admin pin, and select Recalibrate Sensors. It took 30 seconds, but if you didn't do it, the generator's computer would assume the air intake was blocked by snow and would refuse to start to prevent carbon monoxide buildup. Gabriel didn't know the admin pin. He didn't even know where the control panel was. It was behind a locked panel that I had the key to on my keychain, the keychain that was currently sitting on the nightstand next to me in the hotel. I could unlock it remotely. I could recalibrate the sensors from my laptop right now. One click. That was all it would take to ensure that when the storm hit, they would be safe. I hovered the mouse over the remote override button. I thought about Gabriel's face when he screamed, "You do nothing." I thought about Grayson smirking as I walked out into the cold. I thought about my mother, knitting, choosing silence over her daughter's safety. My finger trembled over the mouse pad. This wasn't just about being kicked out. This was about the antagonist in my life, not a villain in a cape, but a man in a recliner who believed he owned me. Gabriel was a man who demanded the fruits of my labor while spitting on the hands that grew them. He had created a narrative where I was the villain, the ungrateful child, and he was the benevolent patriarch. If I fixed the generator now, I would be proving him right. I would be the invisible servant, the magic fairy who fixed things before they even broke, allowing him to live in his delusion that he was in control. I closed the laptop. "No," I said aloud to the empty hotel room. I wasn't going to sabotage them. I wasn't going to break anything. I was simply going to do exactly what he asked. I was going to get out. I was going to stop doing the things that meant nothing. I was going to let Gabriel manage his own facility. I picked up the phone and called room service. "Yes, I'd like the full breakfast," I said, my voice steady. "And plenty of coffee. I'm going to be here for a while." Outside, the first heavy flakes of the blizzard began to fall, swirling against the glass like white ash. The storm was here. The first 2 days of the blizzard were deceptive. The snow piled up in drifts against the hotel window, transforming the world into a muffled white landscape. Inside, I was warm. I had reliable Wi-Fi, endless coffee, and a bed that didn't judge me, but my mind was racing. I wasn't just sitting idle, I was strategizing. On the third morning, the text messages started. "Linda, Claire, honey, are you okay? It's really coming down out there. Your father is asking about the thermostat. It's set to 68 but feels colder." I ignored it. "Grayson, yo, the internet is lagging. Did you change the password? I can't stream." I ignored that too. Then the first real crack in their facade appeared. "Gabriel, the power flickered. The generator didn't kick on. What did you do to it? Fix it." I stared at the screen. "Fix it. Not please, not are you safe, just a demand." He assumed I was still operating as his personal IT department from exile. I opened my laptop. I logged into the county property records. I wanted to see exactly whose name was on the deed. It was Gabriel and Linda's. But then I checked the mortgage documents, which were public record. There was a lien on the property from a few years back, the bad investment Gabriel had made. I dug deeper. I pulled up my own bank statements for the last 3 years. I categorized every transfer: mortgage gap payment, utility bill, generator installment, HVAC repair. I built a spreadsheet. The total was staggering. Over $45,000 in 3 years. I wasn't just a contributor, I was a majority shareholder in their survival. I decided to call my lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah whom I knew through work. "Sarah," I said, my voice raspy but firm, "I need to know my legal standing. I've been paying the mortgage on a house I don't own, and I've just been illegally evicted. What are my options?" "Do you have receipts?" Sarah asked. "I have bank statements, texts acknowledging the payments, and emails from the utility companies," I said. Then you have leverage, she replied. You might have a claim for unjust enrichment or even a constructive trust. But right now, your biggest leverage isn't legal. It's practical. They can't afford that house without you, can they? No, I said, they can't. Then let them feel that, she advised. Don't engage, let the reality set in. I hung up feeling a strange mix of power and dread. The storm outside was intensifying. The news reported power lines down across 3 counties. Then my phone buzzed with a notification from the smart home app. System alert, main power lost. Grid disconnected. System alert, generator start failure. Error code 404B, manual override required. The house was dark. I watched the temperature reading on the app. It was 68 degrees. 10 minutes later, 65 degrees. 20 minutes later, 62 degrees. I waited. My phone rang. It was Gabriel. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. Finally, on the 4th try, I picked up. Hello, I said, keeping my voice neutral. What did you do? Gabriel screamed. I could hear the wind howling in the background, which meant he was standing near a window or door, probably trying to get better signal. The power is out. The generator isn't working. You sabotaged it. I didn't touch it, I said calmly. It requires maintenance, Dad, remember. I told you it needs a manual reset when the temperature drops this low. It's a safety feature. Well, reset it, he yelled. Do it from your phone, I know you can. I can't, I lied. The remote access only works if the local panel is manually overridden first. You have to go outside to the unit. Outside in this, he sputtered. It's 20 below zero with the wind chill. Then I guess you'll have to wait for the grid to come back up, I said. The power company estimates, let me see, 2 to 3 days. There was a silence on the line. I could hear Linda crying in the background. Claire, Gabriel's voice changed. It wasn't apologetic, it was bargaining. Don't be like this. Your mother is cold. Grayson is freezing. You have a duty to your family. My duty? I laughed, a harsh sound. You kicked me out, remember? You said I do nothing. If I do nothing, then my absence shouldn't change anything, right? I was angry, he shouted. It was just talk. You know how I get. Now stop playing games and come fix this. I'm not playing games, I said. I'm at a hotel, I'm warm, and I'm not coming back until we have a very different conversation about respect and rent. Rent, he scoffed. You live under my roof. And who pays for that roof? Gabriel. I asked, my voice dropping. I just tallied it up. $45,000. That's what I've put into that house in 3 years. Do you have $45,000 to pay me back? You ungrateful. He trailed off, sputtering. He had no defense. He knew it was true. Grayson is there, I continued. He's young, he's strong. Why doesn't he go out and fix the generator? Oh, wait. He doesn't know how. He doesn't even know where the manual is, does he? Put Grayson on, I said. There was a rustling sound, and then Grayson's voice came on the line. He sounded scared. Claire, it's really cold. The gaming PC shut off and I can't charge my phone. Grayson, I said, the manual override key is on my keychain, the one I took with me. What? He squeaked. You can't start the generator, I said. Not without me, and I'm not coming. You're crazy, Grayson shouted. Dad is going to kill you. Dad can't even keep the lights on, I said. Tell him to call me when he's ready to apologize. And I mean really apologize. Not just, I was angry. I want a plan. I want to know how you two are going to contribute if I ever step foot in that house again. I hung up. My heart was pounding. I felt like I had just jumped off a cliff. I had never spoken to them like that. I had never held the power. But as I looked at the app, seeing the temperature drop to 58 degrees, I realized I wasn't the one falling. They were. By evening, the temperature inside the house was 48 degrees. I ordered a steak for dinner. I sat by the window of the hotel restaurant, watching the snow bury the world. I felt a pang of guilt, a deep, conditioned ache in my chest that told me I was a bad daughter. But then I remembered the way Gabriel had looked at me when he told me to get out. The contempt. My phone buzzed. A picture message from Sadie. It was a selfie of her huddled in a blanket fort in the living room. Her nose was red. "Sadie, Dad is trying to build a fire in the fireplace, but the wood is damp. It's smoking up the whole room. Mom is crying because she can't find the matches. Grayson is just complaining. Please, Claire, I'm cold." I stared at the photo. Sadie was the innocent bystander in this war. She was 19, a student, and while she didn't help much, she wasn't malicious like Grayson or entitled like Gabriel. I texted back, "Sadie, if you can get out, I will come pick you up. I will brave the roads for you. But only you, Sadie, I can't. Dad took the car keys. He says we stand together. He thinks you're going to break any minute. He was holding them hostage to his pride. He would rather freeze his family than admit he needed me." I decided to escalate. I opened my laptop and logged into the local community Facebook group. It was active, filled with people sharing storm updates and offers of help. I saw a post from a neighbor, Mrs. Higgins. "Mrs. Higgins, power out on Elm Street. Anyone else? Our generator is running, but we're worried about fuel." I commented, "Stay safe, Mrs. Higgins. My parents at 402 are without power too. Their generator isn't working because it requires a specific maintenance key that I have, but I'm currently displaced. If anyone checks on them, please let them know I'm safe at the Residence Inn." I didn't say I was kicked out. I didn't say they were abusive. I just dropped the breadcrumb. Displaced. Maintenance key. Within 10 minutes, the comments started. User 1, displaced. In this weather. User 2, wait, Claire, aren't you the one who installed that massive system for them? Why do you have the key? User 3, I saw Gabriel yelling at someone in the driveway 2 days ago. Was that you? I didn't reply. I let the community do the work. An hour later, my phone rang. It wasn't Gabriel. It was Mrs. Higgins. "Claire." She sounded frantic. "I just went over to check on your mother. Gabriel wouldn't let me in. He shouted through the door that they were fine and that I should mind my own business. But I saw Linda in the window. She looks terrified. It's freezing out here." "Thank you for checking, Mrs. Higgins," I said. "I'm so sorry. He kicked me out on Thursday. I have nowhere to go but this hotel. I tried to help, but he won't let me back in unless I apologize for existing, basically." "He kicked you out," Mrs. Higgins gasped, "and now they're freezing because of his stubbornness." "Yes," I said. "Please, if you can, just keep an eye on Sadie. She's the only one I'm really worried about." The gossip mill in a small town is faster than fiber optic internet. By morning, everyone knew. Gabriel wasn't just the grumpy retiree anymore. He was the man who endangered his family to spite his daughter. The temperature in the house hit 42 degrees. Then the final blow came. I received an alert from the bank. Transaction declined, Netflix, insufficient funds. I smiled. I had emptied the joint account I used to share with my mother, the one I put my rent into the day I left. There was nothing in there but the $50 minimum balance. Gabriel tried to buy something. Probably a heater or emergency supplies online, and the card bounced. He had no heat, he had no power, and now he had no money access because he had relied entirely on my deposits. The phone rang. It was Linda. "Claire," she was weeping openly now, "please, I can't stop shivering, your father. He's trying to burn old furniture in the fireplace. It's awful. Please come home." "Mom," I said gently, "I can't come home to the same house. If I come back, things change. Permanently. I need Dad to admit what he did. I need him to acknowledge that I run that house. And I need him to sign a contract." "A contract?" She choked out. "Yes, a lease, or a repayment plan. I'm done being the invisible bank. Tell him that. Tell him I'm ready to come fix the generator, but only after he agrees to my terms. In writing." "He'll never do it," she sobbed. "Then he freezes," I said, my voice hardening. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I'm done setting myself on fire to keep you all warm." I hung up. I watched the snow pile higher. I knew the breaking point was coming. The house was now a refrigerator. And Gabriel was about to learn that you can't eat pride. The breaking point arrived at 2:00 p.m. on the 4th day. The interior temperature of the house had plummeted to 34 degrees. I knew this because the smart home app sent me a critical alert. Danger, pipe freeze imminent. Ambient temp critical. My phone rang. It was Gabriel. I answered on the first ring this time. I didn't say hello, I just waited. Claire, his voice was unrecognizable, cracked, hoarse, stripped of all its usual bluster. I could hear the chattering of teeth in the background, a sound that cut through me despite everything. The pipes. I think they're going to burst. They will, I said calmly. In about 2 hours if the heat doesn't come back on. Please, he whispered. It was the first time in my life I had ever heard that word leave his mouth directed at me without sarcasm. Your mother, she's not doing well, she's just sitting there. She won't talk. Is she conscious? I asked, my grip tightening on the phone. Yes, but barely, and Grayson, he's crying. He's actually crying, Claire. He says he can't feel his toes. And you, I asked, how are you feeling, Dad? I was wrong, he choked out. I was wrong to say you do nothing. I was wrong to kick you out. I didn't know how much you did. The bills, the generator, everything. It's not just about the money, Dad, I said, my voice trembling slightly. It's about respect. You treated me like a servant in my own home. You let Grayson mock me while I paid for his internet. You let Mom ignore me while I paid for her comfort. I know, he sobbed, a grown man sobbing. I know, I'm sorry, I'll sign whatever you want. Just please, come fix it, come home. I'm coming, I said, but not alone. I hung up and called the police non-emergency line. I requested a welfare check, explaining that my elderly parents were without heat in a blizzard and that I was on my way with a key to the generator but needed assistance getting up the unplowed driveway. Then I called Sarah, my lawyer. Draft it, I said. The repayment agreement and a lease. A real lease. If I'm staying, I'm a tenant with rights, not a child you can kick out. I'll email it to you within the hour, she promised. I drove the SUV slowly through the whiteout. The roads were treacherous, but my vehicle was equipped for this. When I pulled up to the house, a police cruiser was already there, its lights flashing blue against the snow. An officer was banging on the front door. I got out, the wind biting at my face, and trudged up the walk. I unlocked the door with my key. The house was like a tomb. It was colder inside than I expected. The air smelled of stale smoke from the fireplace. Gabriel was huddled on the sofa under a pile of blankets, shivering violently. Linda was next to him, her face pale and waxy. Grayson was curled in a ball on the floor near the dead fireplace, wrapped in a duvet. Sadie ran to me the moment I stepped in, throwing her arms around me. She was freezing. Thank God, she whispered. The officer followed me in. Ma'am, are these folks okay? They need heat, I said, immediately. I walked straight to the back door, ignoring Gabriel's pleading eyes. I went out into the snow to the generator shed. I unlocked the panel with the key on my ring. I punched in the override code, 74190. The machine roared to life, a deep mechanical thrum that vibrated through the ground. Inside, the lights flickered and then blazed on. The furnace kicked in with a low rumble. The hum of the refrigerator started up. The router blinked green. I walked back inside. The warmth was already beginning to circulate. Gabriel looked up at me. He looked small, defeated. The arrogant patriarch was gone, replaced by a frightened old man who had just realized his kingdom was built on sand. Here, I said, pulling a folded document from my pocket, the one Sarah had just emailed me, which I had printed at the hotel business center before leaving. This is a lease agreement. It states that I pay $500 a month in rent, which goes directly into a maintenance fund that I control. It also states that I cannot be evicted without 30 days written notice, and it acknowledges a debt of $45,000 to be repaid upon the sale of this house or from your estate. Gabriel stared at the paper. His hands were shaking too much to hold a pen. Sign it, I said softly, or I turn the generator off and walk back out that door. He looked at Linda. She nodded weakly. He looked at Grayson, who was staring at the floor in shame. Gabriel took the pen. He signed. The recovery was slow. It took 2 days for the house to fully reheat and for the dampness to leave the walls. Linda had a mild case of hypothermia but recovered with rest and warm fluids. Grayson, to his credit, seemed permanently humbled. He stopped making snide comments about my job. In fact, a week later, I found him researching trade schools online. He asked me hesitantly if I thought HVAC repair was a good field. It pays well, I told him, and you'll never freeze. Gabriel was different. The bluster was gone. He was quiet, almost deferential. He stopped complaining about the noise of my work calls. He even started doing the dishes without being asked. It was a small thing, but it was a tectonic shift in our dynamic. We never spoke about the night I left. We didn't have to. The signed contract sat in a fireproof box in my room, a silent guardian of my rights. 3 weeks later, the snow had melted. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Gabriel walked in. He looked at the new coffee maker I had bought, a high-end model to replace the old, broken one. "Good coffee," he muttered, pouring himself a cup. "Thanks," I said, not looking up from my tablet. He hesitated. The gutter on the back porch," he said. "I fixed it yesterday, climbed up and cleared the ice dam." I looked at him then. He met my eyes, and for the first time I saw respect there. Not love, perhaps, that was too complicated, but respect. He knew now, he knew who kept the lights on. "Good," I said. "That needed to be done." "And," he added, clearing his throat, "I transferred the first payment to your maintenance fund. It's not much, but—" "It's a start," I said. He nodded and walked out to the living room. I took a sip of my coffee. The house was warm. The lights were on. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I was home, not as a guest, not as a servant, but as the owner of my own fate.